It was 146 years ago, and it had been a brutal battle, brother against brother. Civil War. Civil War was over, and family members were going to the graveside and leaving flowers by the graveside. On May 5th, 1868, General John Logan noticed the flowers and, through General Order Number 11, proclaimed a holiday. He entitled it Decoration Day, a time to remember. And the first Decoration Day was held on May 30th, 1868. And then in 1882, the name Decoration Day was changed to Memorial Day. And in 1971, Memorial Day became a national holiday, the last Monday in May of each year. It's a time where people go to the graveside and they leave flowers. They remember those who were in the armed services and lost their lives while they were in service to the country. Many go to Arlington National Cemetery, and in the very middle of the cemetery, there is a tomb. The tomb really does not have a registered identifier. You and I know it as the tomb of the unknown soldier. On the west side of the memorial it reads, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." And actually, we have learned that it's different. It's really the tomb of the unknowns. You see, there's more than one soldier buried there. There is someone from World War I and World War II, the Korean War, and until 1998, there was someone from the Vietnam War. You see, something happened in 1998. There was DNA testing. And so they were able to test the person who was buried at the Tomb of the Unknowns and found out that it was Air Force First Lieutenant Michael Joseph Blassie. And once he was identified, his remains were taken to his family, and he was interned at Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in St. Louis. But the place where he was buried in Arlington, they have a slab over the crypt which held him, and it says, "Honoring and keeping faith with America's missing servicemen." You know, some of you have lost family and some of you have lost friends while they were in service to our country. I can honestly say to you, I don't understand war. I understand defending your country, but I don't understand what's in the minds and hearts of leaders who go in and start war. And I can honestly say to you, I have the greatest deal of honor and the greatest deal of respect for those who have died in service to our country. And I want to acknowledge that today. First of all, I would like, if any of you are currently in the armed forces, would you please stand? Anyone who might currently be in the armed forces. Any of you who are veterans of the armed forces, if you would please stand, and I understand we have one in a wheelchair in the back, but anybody a veteran of our armed forces, would you please stand? If you have family that are currently serving in the armed forces, would you please stand? Okay, let's take a breath. Dean and Jan, I want to tell you a couple of stories. Come on up. I want to introduce a couple of people to you. I want to introduce to you Second Lieutenant in Field Artillery, Robert C. Keeler, the father of our very own Sandy Keeler. Sandy's father was in D-Day +1, landing on Omaha Beach. He was in the liberation of Paris, the Battle of the Bulge. He helped to free a concentration camp. He did not lose his life while in service to the country, but he did lose both legs. I want to introduce to you Captain John Thomas Chapman, U.S. Marines. Jan Chapman, our Director of Worship and Communications father. When Captain Chapman and his wife were pregnant, they had an agreement that if the baby was a boy, then the wife got to name it. And if it was a girl, then Captain Chapman got to name it. And so Captain Chapman got to name Jan. He loved holding her. He loved holding her up there and flying her around like she was an airplane. He wanted 5 kids, but that wasn't to happen. You see, when Jan was 2.5 years old, Captain Chapman was piloting a helicopter in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. A monsoon hit, and the helicopter with 42 of our troops on board crashed, and all were killed. I would like to introduce to you Neon Bang. Neon was born during the Vietnam War in Vietnam. When it became time to flee her country, she and her family had less than 4 hours to get everything together and to get out of the country. We've had a real emotional week with the staff this past week as we were sharing stories. And as we were sitting there sharing stories, Neon looked to Jan, and Neon said, "Jan, without your father and other people like him, I wouldn't be here today." We want to honor and celebrate those who have given their lives in service to this country. If you know of someone who has given their life in service to this country, would you please stand? And I'm going to ask our ushers and prayer chaplains to take their place. What I'm going to have you do, I'm going to ask that you come up the center aisle. If you're in the outside aisles, just come up the outside aisles. We have these candlesticks, candle lighting sticks, to take one. And to light a candle for someone who died in service for this country. And then when you're done, you can just put the lit candle right into the sand. So we invite you to come forward now. It's a time to remember those who died in service to this country, died so that we can have the freedom that we now have. Let's all stand. And let's just have a moment of silence. Please be seated. I don't ever want to diminish this meaning of Memorial Day, this day of honoring those who did die in service to this country. I never want to forget that. This is primary. And Memorial Day has grown a little bit. It's a time when many of us go to family members or friends' gravesites who may or may not have been in the service, and we leave flowers. It's a time to thank all those people on whose shoulders we now rest, all those people who allow us to be who and what we are today. So I invite you just to take a moment now and just to close your eyes, to bring to mind someone who has moved on. Not necessarily in service, but someone who's moved on, someone who has touched your life deeply. A friend, a family member, someone who shared a kind deed or a word that changed your life. This is a time when we can reach across space and time, a time when we can remember and we can give thanks. So I invite you just to take a moment now, just in the silence, in a time to remember, in the silence. For the memory, for the gift that you were in our lives, we do give thanks. Amen.